No question about it. It has been the year of Taylor Swift. She has dominated the news and pop culture since the announcement of her Eras Tour broke Ticketmaster at the end of 2022. Now, since then, she has broken sale records, boosted the economy, and also brought a new demographic to the NFL. We're going to be spending the next hour taking a deep dive into the impact that she has had on the economy, on marketing, and more. Joining us now for the next hour, we have Yahoo Finance senior reporter Alexandra Canal.
So excited.
It's so much to talk about here. I think I was surprised by how much focus has been spent on Taylor Swift. It seems like everyone has been talking about her. Jay Powell, like we just had in our package, even mentioned the impact or didn't dismiss the impact that she has had on the economy.
Yeah, you just think about the local economies too, from the flights to the tickets to the merch. I know multiple people that traveled far and wide to go to this concert multiple times. The touch points that she has is just remarkable, and it seems like you can't really replicate it. This is the pop star of our generation, and we think about the summer, the girl summer that we had, not just with the Eras Tour, but also Beyonce's Renaissance Tour, the Barbie movie. That helped boost GDP in the third quarter. In fact, Fortune estimates that the tour could generate $4.6 billion in U.S. consumer spending, and that's just the Eras Tour alone. And it comes at this perfect time where people want to get out there. The pandemic, people are at home. Now live events is where it's at. And in this era, no pun intended, of inflation, consumers supposedly pulling back on their spending, that's not happening with T-Swift.
Well, see, here's the thing. In the experience economy that has been, and as you mentioned, it's movie going, Barbie, it's concert going, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, and it requires a great deal of execution to make sure that you're getting the omnichannel approach correct for all of these, whether it's in the movies, whether it's for the concert goers as well, and selling merchandise at every single turn here, and then also making sure that you stay in the news with a potential relationship as well for Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. And so all of this considered here, I have never defined myself as a Swiftie, but I will say on a business mindset approach, I am a little bit more Swiftie adjacent at this point because of the execution
That's a
that
big
we've seen come forward.
Okay, there we go. And you mentioned the news multiple times. Taylor Swift has been mentioned. The most unlikely place that Taylor Swift has popped up this year has been in financial news. Yahoo Finance reporter Josh Schaefer is here with every time Taylor's name was mentioned in that context. And Josh, I know you're a big Swiftie. You volunteered yourself for this segment, so give us a breakdown.
Yeah, Allie, I mean, candidly, I'm not that big of a Swiftie, but even I haven't even been able to ignore her this year because she's been in our news. She's been in financial news really throughout the summer. So if we take a look at a timeline of when we started seeing Taylor Swift, we know that Eras Tour really kind of started in the spring. So then it trickles into economic data into the summer. She was mentioned in the Fed Beige Book. Moody's called out Taylor Swift. There was a question to Fed Chair Jerome Powell about the Taylor Swift impact, and then Morgan Stanley highlighting at the end of the summer that the end of the Eras Tour is going to mean slower consumption. So I want to dig in a little bit as far as what we saw in different aspects of this. If you take a look at what the Fed Beige Book actually had to say about Swift, they wrote, despite the slowing recovery in tourism in the region overall, one contact highlighted that May was the strongest month for hotel revenue in Philadelphia since the onset of the pandemic, in large part due to an influx of guests for the Taylor Swift concerts in the city. And then if you fast forward to what Moody's reported, you'll see Moody's highlighting the impact that we saw for hotels in different cities. So all the way to the right there is the average revenue for room in the total US growth. But look at the cities that Swift was in. Look at Newark, look at Philadelphia, look at Boston. Massive increases on those days when Taylor Swift was there. And then this one was my personal favorite, because we had this summer of Swift. Then at the end of the summer, Morgan Stanley comes out and says, seriously, for Q4, you should be worried about not having Taylor Swift. Now, this is combining Taylor Swift and Beyonce, also Barbenheimer, but you can see we were looking at 1.9% growth there, and then actually potentially going negative in Q4 from what Morgan Stanley had projected back in August when you take out Swift, Beyonce, Barbenheimer. So without that girl economy, without that girl power economy that we talked a lot about over the summer, we might not have seen the resilient U.S. consumer that has kept us out of a recession.
Josh, one performer being called out this many times by economic studies, I mean, how common is that if we were looking at it from a historical perspective here?
Brad, it is not common. So I talked to several economists when I was reporting on different stories about this over the summer and just simply said, is this normal? And Tom Simmons over at Jefferies, who's been in the industry for about 15 years, said absolutely not. And one thing that we sort of came to a conclusion on is maybe Taylor Swift is our way of understanding the resilient consumer in the U.S. economy and what the story was over the summer. When we think about what the economic story has been for the U.S., it has been people willing to spend on services, willing to spend on experiences, and willing to spend up on once-in-a-lifetime experiences. And it seems like that's what Taylor Swift got at with this Eras Tour. She was the perfect epitome of people being willing to spend on a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see all these eras come together, to trade the friendship bracelets, to really have a moment and a concert that we haven't seen before. And so Taylor Swift really was a microcosm of the resilient U.S. consumer, and I think that's why us in finance news were attracted to it. I think that's why people in the NFL have been attracted to it. Everyone loves talking T Swift. She speaks to everyone, and she's certainly spoken to us in finance news over the last 6 months or so.
All right, Josh, my friendship bracelet to you is on the way from Etsy. It's in the mail right now, I've been told. All right, stand by
Can't
for
wait.
that coming your way. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour has had an economic impact. Greater than 50 countries is where that impact has been felt, according to a recent study. Concert goers have been spending about $1,300 per show. If that pace continues through the end of the tour, it'll add an estimated $5 billion to the U.S. economy. Here with her insight into the economic juggernaut that is Taylor Swift is Enders Analysis music industry analyst Alice Enders. Great to have you here with us this morning. Okay, so just round figures here as we think about that economic impact. What do you calculate that to be, and where do you expect this to continue to kind of show itself strong?
Well, we're seeing the same level of ticket prices, all over the world. I think one of the important things that's going on outside the US is that Taylor's being really strict about resale. And as you know, we're not really capturing the full cost. If someone spent $7,000 on a ticket, that obviously is going to bulk up ticket revenues. The heart of this is, of course, the ticket sales themselves. But I think the thing that's really important about Taylor, and the thing that really makes her so different from other people in the industry, is, first of all, she's a singer, songwriter, performer. She's all by herself on stage. She only, she calls all the shots. And one of the most important things about Taylor is that she cultivates an incredibly strong relationship, direct relationship with her fans. She is on the side of the fans and not on the side of the industry players, whether it's the venue operators or Ticketmaster or anyone else, the record labels or whatever. And I think that kind of personal connection, I haven't really seen that to that extent in certainly in the last couple decades in terms of singer performers. I mean, I think Adele has a very strong connection with her fans, but Taylor's taken it to absolutely the top. And of course, she's only 33. She has a lot ahead of her. She's a prolific musician. She's both re-recording her masters and also composing new music all the time. There are so many reasons for her fans to get really excited about seeing her. And with 150 some shows across the world, we're just starting to see the real impact. Now, one of the things that's different outside the US is, of course, the fact that, we're not going to have the same level of travel, hotel, and so on, because she's actually, here in the UK, she's going to be in all the major cities. Nobody really has to travel to go and see her. But the fact is that, the ticket cost is very steep. The merch, everything, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to be there and to be,
Alice,
really what we call bucket list.
I want to pick up on that point, because it seems like the Eras Tour was perfectly timed, right? There's this craving for more live events, more concerts, especially post-pandemic. What are the implications of that for the music industry at large? Does that mean we're going to see more artists touring and putting on these live performances? And does that mean the consumer is going to have to pay more because the demand is there?
Well, I hate to surprise you with this, but actually the first time we really saw this experience economy was actually in 2008-09. That was, to me, very eye-opening. It was very similar in the sense that, economic times were difficult, but people just threw themselves into live music, and live music has really not stopped since then. In fact, as you know, you've seen the Rolling Stones go out on tour. We've seen a lot of vintage bands, let's put it that way, get up and get out and get in front of fans. And the reason I think that is so important is that because, the fact is that this digitalization, the internet, everything, there is nothing like live music. And so perhaps it was more that fans had forgotten about how amazing live music is. And so it has been a major arc across the last, certainly 15 years in terms of what, I call the experience economy and so on. I think what we're seeing is that fans are willing to pay an awful lot more, but not for everyone. And there are tours that don't get off the ground. There are vintage bands that don't get booked. So it really has to be the top end of the industry. And there are not a lot of people occupying the top end of the industry. So I think what we are seeing is certainly an appetite for live music, which has been there for a while, but of course was very, very profoundly suppressed during the pandemic. It's a social thing to go to a live music event. You don't go by yourself, you go with your friends and your sort of fellow fans. And so it's an experience on multiple levels.
But Alice, is this something though that can stick? Because I think that's what everyone is trying to figure out, how sticky this is, because yes, consumers are prioritizing the experience right now. That is where they're spending their money. But when we talk about shifting spending trends, is this something that you see remaining for the years to come?
I do see it in live music as long as the acts are there. As we know, Taylor has put an awful lot of effort into this, into the performance, into the entertainment, it is, an encyclopedic review of everything she's done. You can't just stand up and there's so many production values that are surrounding her show. So it's really got to be, super worthwhile for the fans to go out there. But yeah, I do think, I think it is probably much more palpable in live music than, for example, in restaurants. People are cutting back on going out for dinner. It's an issue of shifting priorities. But a must-have event once in a lifetime, maybe next summer too. But I do think it's going to be very sticky in a way that other experiences are not. Like, for example, the cinema has really suffered. Of course, she's drawing a lot of people back into the cinema, but it's different. A film experience of the Eras Tour is not the same as the live event. You feel the music in your body, and I think the more people experience live music, the more they will want to go back and have that experience again.
Well, the economic impact of Taylor Swift has certainly been staggering this year. Enders Analysis music industry analyst Alice Enders, thanks so much.
Taylor Swift's impact has expanded beyond the Billboard charts all the way to the NFL. Her rumored relationship with Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce and attendance at 2 of his games have driven fans and the NFL themselves into a frenzy. Jory Epstein, Yahoo Sports senior NFL reporter, joins us now with more. And Jory, break it down for us. Just how significant has the mere presence of Taylor Swift influenced some of these ticket prices along with viewership?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on. And it is funny because all of these numbers are, of course, constantly in flux. But you see times where StubHub is saying, okay, these tickets are now 3 times expensive, where there's a 10% increase. All sorts of different numbers. And she first attended a game in Kansas City where the Chiefs played. Then it worked out well. They were in New York the next week. Taylor lives in New York. And I was at that game watching Taylor walk in the sort of this star-studded cast. And you definitely saw, I'm seeing fans who say, well, I usually come to these games. I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan, but he's not playing, so I'll wear my Eras Tour shirt today.
Jory, what do you think of how the NFL has handled this? And I guess the ability here for the NFL to retain some of these new fans that they've gotten.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've seen some people critical of it, like, oh, the NFL went overboard. And I'm like, these are two of America's biggest entertainment brands with an opportunity to cross over. Why not? Why not lean into it? Why not have fun with video image and photos of Taylor and Travis Kelce's mom suite? I mean, that's great. So they definitely realize this is a growth opportunity for them in the audience in a way that maybe men 18 to 34 are not. They're leaning into it and they love it.
And Jory, how does the NFL leverage that growth opportunity and make sure that that momentum can stay, even if Taylor Swift doesn't show up to every single game?
Yeah, I mean, I think I will tell you there were numbers that came out from this past weekend's Cowboys at San Francisco 49ers game being like, hey, look, women watched this one too. It was a big game, women watched. And I think that's sort of what the NFL is realizing, that yes, there were people who were tuning in to see Taylor Swift, but women like football. I mean, clearly I have a little bit something to say about that. But I think that the NFL is saying, like, let's make this a fun experience. Let's make this something where we're constantly thinking about all of our opportunities. This doesn't need to be the end of it. This is just the beginning.
I mean, these are like free points, a free kick that the NFL is essentially getting here. And I hate to confuse football references, but at the same time, that's just what it is, especially when they've tried to annex kind of the celebrity appeal. Yeah, great. Bradley Cooper loves the Eagles. So should you. I mean, I'm already an Eagles fan. I didn't need Bradley Cooper to tell me that. But hey, if Taylor Swift, who, by the way, I believe was an Eagles fan, is now a Chiefs annex, well, that's, I guess, another reason why you should like one of the most popular teams in the league. How is the NFL going to successfully go about the celeb washing, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's funny is that you might say, well, why does the NFL need Taylor Swift? They're already getting the top 10 ratings, et cetera, et cetera. And then numbers come out this week that may be higher now, that Travis Kelce has gained 1.1 million Instagram followers since the Taylor Swift news started to percolate. So this is something where they can say, we are seeing the numbers reflect this. Now, the NFL did some things, like their official Twitter account was changing their photos and their byline to Taylor Swift and to lyrics and images. They got a little bit of backlash of that because there was a controversial officiating call at the end of the game, and people were saying, oh, you just wanted the Chiefs to win because Taylor was there. But I think they will continue to lean into it. They probably are taking a couple weeks off the pedal because of that criticism, but I don't think this is over. And I'll be at the league meetings next week and we'll ask, like, what are your plans to carry this forward?
All right, I can't wait to see some of the predictive analytics around this with the Taylor Swift factor layered in as well. Jory Epstein, Yahoo Sports senior NFL reporter. Jory, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, before her NFL takeover, Taylor Swift was breaking the internet in a different way, the Eras Tour. After 3.5 million people signed up for pre-sale for the tour's first leg, only 2.4 million tickets were actually sold, leading to some bad blood between fans and ticket sites as they upped their budget to secure a seat. But from travel to shelter costs, the tour is now expected to generate over $5 billion for the U.S. economy alone. For more on this, we're joined by Matt Farrell, who is the TickPick VP of Growth. All right, why was this debacle taking place on ticketing sites, and how can we reel this in, Matt? Because even I haven't been able to afford to go to a Taylor Swift concert this summer, but heck, at the normal prices, I would have loved to. I would have loved to support. But the resale is getting out of control here, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we saw was a outpaced demand for supply. There are very few artists that have the level of demand that Taylor does. And even football stadiums can't really contain the number of fans that are looking to go. And so what we saw really was trying to balance the volume of shows, the volume of seats needed, and the number of fans became really quite complicated, and the prices rose to meet that demand.
Matt, what did you see just from your data in the ticket sales for these NFL games? How big of a jump are you seeing on your platform?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we just got a update today that Taylor is rumored to be at the Chiefs-Broncos game. So we'll see what the long-lasting effect is going to be of what that jump is. But we did see a fairly substantial rise for the Jets game. We saw an increase of nearly 63%, and it was one of our top-selling games of the year once the announcement was made that Taylor was going to be there. So it really becomes sort of an interesting ancillary benefit to two very, compelling teams and compelling markets. But it also shows, as mentioned, like she brings a fan base of her own outside of the NFL audience.
And Matt, going back to her tour, I'm curious from your perspective in this business, was the Eras Tour a once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon in terms of the reaction, the demand? How did it stack up compared to some of the other live concerts and events on your platform?
I've been in the live event space for a long time, putting on tours, and would I call it once in a lifetime? No. Would I call it a absolute milestone tour? Absolutely. When we talk about the volume of seats and the average ticket price for this tour, as mentioned, it really got quite severe in terms of the cost. I mean, to put in context, the average purchase price was around $1,400 a ticket. Now, the average concert in 2023 is $188. So we're talking about most venues are not the size of football stadiums, and she was still able to drive that demand. The next closest we're looking at is the Adele residency in Las Vegas, and that reached $1,300 a ticket, but that venue pales in comparison to the size of what Taylor was playing. So it really was quite an anomaly in the touring space, and as you mentioned, it may be a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Matt, when you looked across the different cities that we're seeing perhaps the biggest sales, or at least maybe the biggest overlap, because I would imagine that there's some data where you could see where someone is actually purchasing from versus where the event is actually taking place. How much of that overlap were you seeing? People willing to travel in order to see these concerts?
Yeah, I mean, I think you see it in the major metro markets, New York and Los Angeles, obviously having the most volume of shows. And we saw people willing to make a summer trip out of it. The tour concluded, at least the front half of the tour. She will be playing dates in 2024 in Los Angeles. And we would see people start price comparing. All right, with these ticket prices, what is the cost of a hotel? What is the cost of a flight? And there are certain markets where you could actually justify flying to actually get a cheaper experience all in because of the level of cost for this particular tour. So we did see a number of markets that drove more out-of-state transactions than others. But yeah, we saw the same with Beyonce as well. People flying to Europe to go see her early days tours for this particular tour.
Matt, I'm curious, when you take a look at who is buying tickets, and not for the tour, but going back to the NFL, because it certainly has been remarkable when you take into account how many new fans are now tuning into games just because Taylor is there. Have you noticed anything on your platform just about who is buying these tickets?
I think we're seeing, outside of the men 18 to 34 demo and men just in general from a transactions, I would say that this has been a ongoing trend. I think the diversification of fan base within most major leagues, but specifically NFL, has been in the making for years. It does not hurt that probably the largest entertainer in the world is also advocating and supporting this league. And so we are seeing a different mix of transactions in this particular year, and it's encouraging. It's showing that these fan bases and that these leagues can continue to grow even multiple years, multiple decades into existence. This is something that new fans can come to, and having the support of the largest musician in the world does not hurt that.
Doesn't hurt at all. All right, Matt, thanks so much for taking the time to jump on with us. Tick Pick, a VP of Growth. Thanks.
Thank you.
Live from the NASDAQ in New York City, gone are the times that entertainers only drove sales of their own merchandise, because now anything that they're associated with is making big bucks, especially if you're Taylor Swift. Now, that's especially true here for the queen of music right now. She's sold out sneakers, inspired sauce, and she's even increasing some sales for Halloween costumes. So let's talk about all of this and break it down, because first, guys, What jumped out to me was how quickly Halloween outfits are selling, Halloween costumes that are geared towards Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. So some data here looking at some of the trends that we're seeing so far. We still got about 3 weeks until Halloween, but there was a company called Three Wishes right now. It's an online Halloween store saying that they're already sold out of this outfit here for Travis Kelce and for Taylor Swift. Of course, you can be creative and do a little DIY project, but they're saying they're trying their best to get everything back in stock. They expect it later this month, but it's the second fastest selling product in the company's history, second only to the Tiger King costume a couple of years ago. We still got 3 weeks to go. I have a feeling this is going to be their top seller, but really just highlights the impact that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, the relationship there, what that's doing here for many industries.
I thought it would be Barbie and Ken. You know, that was the guarantee. And
There's so many different versions.
There's so many different versions.
Yeah.
We had the movie this summer. The funny thing is apparently Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, the real life versions, they joked about being Barbie and Ken for Halloween. And now in this multiverse we're living in, people want to be Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift. I would think this would be a very easy costume to pull off at home. I don't even think you need to go out and purchase something, but the amount, I mean, especially if they continue their relationship where it looks like they are, I feel like this is gonna just explode on Halloween.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, one thing that I've been looking across is the impact on sneakers here. I mean, sneakers, that's amazing to watch. StockX has latched onto this as well. They have an entire, and I laughed a little bit. This is the sneaker that she wore to the first Chiefs game that she showed up to. And afterwards, now you've got StockX curating what they call a list of sneakers that are on StockX that you will love all too well. Taylor's version, what they call it there, but featuring a lot of the New Balances, and she's been rocking some New Balances just in casual life in public out there, and so no doubt New Balance seeing one of, even as we had spoken to Joe Preston, who was the CEO of New Balance previously, and him talking about how the Gen Xers and millennials are gravitating towards the brand. This is only going to be lighter fluid on top of that.
Yeah, and just to go through some of those numbers there that you were just seeing on your screen. Now, this is according to an internal presentation that was cited by Complex. Revenue for that sneaker, which is the New Balance 550, that was up 25% in the week following her appearance, while units sold jumped 22%. And then you had site traffic to the New Balance 550 website also increasing by double digits, up 30%, as internal searches surged by 73%.
Are you going to disclose that you bought 550s
buy?
the week before? I will give you credit. We discussed it. It was the week before Taylor showed up at the game with 550s. But Brad, you're in on the trend too.
But you know what? I am in on the trend, and here's the thing: I had to get ahead of where everybody else was going to start going. I knew that they were going to pick up the 550s. I had to pick up, but I had to put my little flair on it. I had to get the lavender purple Rich Paul 550s, who just had his 60 Minutes feature, who has been crushing it. It's got his new book out, so I got the Rich Paul edition, but I did still get some 550s, and I was a little bit influenced by Taylor.
Okay, but would you try this new condiment that Kraft Heinz is coming out with? It is ketchup and seemingly ranch. Now, this is based off a viral tweet of Taylor Swift eating a chicken nugget with ketchup and seemingly ranch. Kraft, I mean, they jumped in on this opportunity. They're making limited edition 100 bottles of this. Now, the 100 number is significant because Travis Kelce's jersey is 87, Taylor Swift's lucky number is 13, hence the 100 bottles that will be available. But it just seems like it was an authentic moment for them to get in and create this sauce, this condiment, if you will. It's just crazy, though, to see a company, a public company for that matter, try and jump on this Taylor Swift craze.
Look, I'm still trying to get my hands on the Cardi B whip shots. How am I going to get my hands on this?
I know, only 100 bottles. You know that's going to sell out very, very quickly.
Not, but you can very easily make this.
I can make this?
Right?
It's like special
ketchup
sauce.
and ranch sauce. At least that's what it sounds like. You could just combine the two. It's pretty easy to make inside your. I would definitely try it. Hopefully they added a little bit of flair to it. I feel like it would be good if it had a little bit of spice.
Little pepper.
Yeah,
Throw a little pepper in there.
I don't know, but it's so smart, and it also just goes with the trend that so many of these companies like this here just trying to do anything they can to muster up a little bit of attention to boost sales here. So very smart move, and they did it quickly.
Look, it's clear that Taylor Swift is a marketing master without really trying. The NFL is worth over $140 billion, but when Swift goes to a game, they take advantage of it. They even change their X headline photo. So for more on the marketing mania that is Taylor Swift, we want to bring in Marcus Collins. He is the University of Michigan Ross School of Business marketing professor. He is also an author. Thank you so much for joining us, Marcus. So first, blanket statement here. When you think about Taylor Swift and how she is this marketing mastermind, I'm gonna play to some of her songs there. Why? How has she kind of cultivated this identity?
I think what Taylor Swift has done is twofold. One, she has identified who she is beyond just being an artist, beyond just being someone who makes music. She's an icon. She represents something. She represents a certain brand of feminism. And so she transcends the category in which she operates. The second part is that she's cultivated a community, not just fans who like the music, but a group of people who self-identify by their membership in the community, i.e. Swifties. And therefore, they see the world similar to the way that Taylor Swift does. And her personhood becomes a way by which they represent their identity. And that's super powerful for brands writ large.
Marcus, I gotta admit, even I'm becoming a convert here. I've watched the documentaries. I've looked at potentially purchasing tickets to the concert here, and I feel like every day I'm growing closer to the official title of Swiftie. I'm not there yet, but give her so much credit for how well the team around her and herself have been able to put on a show that brings everybody in and gives them a sense of what to expect. You around her and all of the capitalizing on where there's merchandise and where they can continue to make sure that she's in the public spotlight, and now the movie. So all of these things considered, what is the lesson that anyone who is trying to market themselves should take away from Taylor Swift?
Yeah. Well, everything around Taylor Swift's orbit is perfectly curated. But I think the major takeaway for marketers, for leaders, for entrepreneurs, for anyone who's trying to present themselves to the world in a compelling way, is that you have to start with, how do you see the world? What's your worldview? What's your ideology? The point of view you have on the world. And everything that you do should be a demonstrative representation of that, an expression of that. We see that in her music, we see it in the way that she lives her life, we see it in the things that she speaks out about. These things are all reflections of who she is. So for marketers, for brands, for content creators, we have to ask ourselves, who are we? And then who sees the world the way we do? And how do we use our resources trying to facilitate connection? Facilitate those covalent bonds that connect us with people. When that happens, we activate a network effect that starts to reverberate into the population, i.e. converting you. Taylor Swift isn't talking to you, but it is the cacophony of the people who are now a part of this community that is persuading you to go a certain way, to consume a certain thing, and to self-identify a certain way. And that is unbelievably powerful.
Marcus, a prime example of this and a company here trying to really capitalize on Taylor Swift's brand is the NFL. What do you think of this strategy that we've seen from the league over the last couple of weeks, and what that really signals just about the direction or the hope that the league is trying to steer the direction towards in the future?
The league is definitely benefiting from the Taylor Swift effect. And so I say the Taylor Swift network effect. But I think that what the league has to realize is that this is temporal, and that people's attention is because of their proximity to Taylor. But if Taylor stops coming to games, if she stops attending because her travel schedule picks up, then if there's not any relevance between the game and those people who are there because of their affiliation with Taylor, then those people are definitely going to lose those people, right? There's going to be an attrition of those folks. So the NFL should be thinking about, what is it about who they are as a brand and a branded product that is the game, and who are these people, and how do we find congruence in a meaningful way? I mean, I think the most interesting part about all this is that, like, Taylor didn't even wear a jersey to that first game, right? But the jersey sales went up. And that means that within these people, these communities of people, they were negotiating what is acceptable behavior for people like themselves. And that's the unbelievable part. That is the most powerful part about Taylor Swift, her ability to facilitate community.
She didn't wear the jersey. She wasn't sure if Tay wanted to be Bay just yet, but maybe at a future game she'll be rocking the jersey. Who knows? I'm just going to throw that out there, Marcus. But even as we think about the economic impact that Taylor Swift, that Beyonce, that Barbie have had over the course of this summer, it has been the summer of women powering the economy through some of the marketing, through some of the events. And now for a person like Taylor, who knows herself, who knows her audience as well, how powerful all of this could be going into, I'll be the person to say it, going into a 2024 general election. How powerful do many of these themes also transpire into next year?
Yeah, I mean, we see a common theme between Beyonce, Taylor, and Barbie. It's not just because they were women-led, but because they are representing a brand of feminism, an ideology, a point of view about the world. And if we look at current politics, there's a lot of attack on women, on women's personhood, on women's autonomy, on their agency. And the hope, the idea scenario is that these outlets, these vehicles become cultural vessels by which people can engage in conversation in such a way that is reflected in how they vote. I mean, I think the most powerful thing of all of this is that people aren't consuming because of what these things are. They're consuming because of who they are, because of their cultural subscription, how they see the world. And it's being manifested or made material through their consumption. And the hope as we enter into a political season that we'll see those things manifest in the way in which people show up to the ballot box, the way people advocate for certain policies, and the way people show up in communities to guide a certain agenda forward.
Marcus Collins, University of Michigan Ross School of Business, marketing professor and author. Marcus, always a pleasure to get some of your insights. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Concert, but they're willing to continue to spend on Taylor Swift for Taylor Swift merchandise. They'll probably dress up as Taylor Swift and maybe drag one of their friends or boyfriend to be Travis Kelce for Halloween as well. I just think the Swifties are hardcore, and you don't really have average fans for Taylor Swift. It's really all in or nothing, it feels like.
Yeah, certainly. And Allie, you talk about the fact that Swifties are all in. And I think that was also reflected in the results that we got from the Yahoo Finance poll that we put up on X. And from these results, 10% of people who weighed in said that they actually spend over $1,000. And I think that that's pretty indicative of what we're seeing play out in the broader economy as well, right? When you take into account the number of people who are diehard Swifties and the number that are willing to spend over $1,000. And it sounds like from the ticket prices, you almost need to spend $1,000 if you want to go to one of these shows and have decent seats, given the demand and given the resale value that we've seen on so many of these tickets. So people are willing to spend. But I also think that the question here going forward is what this tells us about the broader picture of where people are spending in the economy, whether or not consumers are going to continue to favor those experiences, continue to go out there and spend that way, or if we are going to see this shift. And also, if there's any other artists out there, and there are quite a few very, very popular artists that have been able to attract a pretty penny for their ticket prices, but I guess how large that audience could potentially be and who is next is what people are wondering about too.
I just think about the concerts that I paid to go see, and then I think about the fact that I even still loaded up these apps to try and figure out if I could get tickets to Beyonce in a different city. I almost went to see Beyonce in Houston. Almost. Couldn't fly plus concert tickets.
It was expensive.
It's expensive.
Wait,
it's expensive.
I'm curious
always.
how much you guys have spent on a concert.
Probably the most this year that I've ever spent on a concert. I went to see Coldplay in Barcelona.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a fun experience. I did not know Barcelona gets down with Coldplay like they do.
Oh, how much did you pay for the global audience? Yeah,
I can't
you don't
disclose
have
that.
to.
I paid a lot. I paid a lot for these tickets.
That was not
You're
what I was
slightly embarrassed by how much you paid, but you paid a lot.
I paid a lot.
I don't think I paid over $200 to go to a
Okay, that's usually my breaking point. I did pay like $450 to go see John Mayer. I love him. I never saw him before. I wanted to listen to his music.
$450 to see John Mayer?
Okay, he's
We gotta talk about.
He's good, Shauna.
He's
He's
good.
an acoustic solo tour. I would go again. Although next time, I think $200 to $250 is mine.
Yeah, I
my
probably
limit.
spend a little over $200 now I think about it for certain ones, but it just highlights that these artists certainly do get people to spend a heck of a lot of money. And also the big takeaway, Taylor Swift certainly having a massive impact on the U.S. economy and the global economy. If you couldn't make it to the tour, have no fear. Taylor Swift's record-setting concert is in movie theaters starting this weekend. Now, the Eras Tour concert film has already secured big ticket sales at the box office. Here with more Yahoo Finance's Alexandra Canal. And Allie, a lot of happy and excited Swifties out there. They've been waiting weeks for today.
You're right. A lot of happy Swifties. Taylor Swift the Eras Tour officially here. We have the LA premiere on Wednesday, early access shows on Thursday, and now the official wide release today, Friday, for all those Swifties. And in terms of the box office, this movie is already crushing it in ticket sales, $2.8 million in previews alone. IMAX revealing that more than 350 shows are already sold out, with well over $100 million in advanced ticket sales. We did ask IMAX CEO during our Taylor Swift special what this demand ultimately means, and he said that the box office has seen this demand before, but for blockbuster films, not necessarily a concert film. So it's this unprecedented phenomenon that certainly set a new bar and has opened up a new window of opportunity for theater chains, especially at a time when a lot of these theaters, they're really struggling for content. We have the actors' strike still ongoing. The writers' strike just ended after nearly 5 months. Studios have had to reshuffle a lot of their release schedules as a result. And we have seen major films such as Warner Brothers' Dune 2, for example, move into 2024. And that's not great, especially after we had a summer that was so strong. So concert films like Taylor Swift's offer that boost that cinema chains are ultimately looking for. And she's not the only one. We're going to see Beyonce's Renaissance tour at the end of December. So the girl summer that we saw is continuing well through the winter. But certainly this is going to be a big one this weekend, and I expect some pretty high numbers on Monday after we see who ultimately shows up and shows out for this concert film.
Oh, they're going to show out for sure, Allie. Look, when we think about our conversation with Richard Gelfond, the IMAX CEO, about this and the excitement that executives are having, and even to the point where I had seen some of the waiving of certain rules that are in place. I didn't even know about these coming into this this theater experience, where at Alamo Drafthouse, I heard that they're waiving the rule where you got to sit down, you got to basically shut up while you're in the theater, and they're saying, hey, you could get up, you could dance, you could party. I mean, how much, not just fanfare, are the theaters expecting to really generate from this, but then how many kind of recurring, perhaps? There could be people that come multiple times to see this.
Oh, absolutely. People went multiple times to the actual show, so I certainly expect that people are going to go to the theater multiple times. The film is 2 hours and 48 minutes long, okay? So a nearly 3-hour movie. I did see some videos, some snippets from the LA premiere. People are on their feet, they are dancing, they are singing, and they are dressed up, sharing their friendship bracelets. I mean, it's basically going to feel like you're at the concert. So this is a great opportunity for those folks that weren't able to get tickets, myself included. It was very difficult. Now they have the opportunity to get in on the action and really experience this cultural moment. And look, live events, they've exploded, especially in this post-pandemic era. And I think this concert film is just another example of that demand right now.
All right, I see you're at one of our remote locations right now, so you can't ask Josh Schaefer if he's gotten my friendship bracelet that I sent him yet. I'll just ping him on Slack after we wrap up here.
I'll follow up with him.
Okay, please report back on that. Allie Canal, thanks so much for the update. We appreciate that.